Hello friends. If you're anything like me, you've probably thought before about trying to cut back on the amount of clothes you buy. We all know that buying large amounts of clothing often contributes to climate destruction or labor violations, and it's giving up your hard-earned money that could maybe better be used for something else. Of course, all of those drawbacks to buying lots of clothes are real and valid in and of themselves. I think about them all the time. But I also think that when it feels like a sacrifice or a trade-off, rather than something you genuinely internally want to do for your own benefit, it can be hard to actually act with those negative impacts in mind, and we can end up maybe overshopping anyway. However, I have bad news and good news on this matter. The bad news is that the overshopping we end up doing because we think it will benefit us and give us what we want usually fails to deliver on that promise. I don't actually think it's good for the world or for ourselves individually, in my experience. But conversely, the good news is that I have found over years of thrifting probably too many clothes and then trying to rein in those habits, that buying less and limiting what you own can actually improve your individual daily life. Buying fewer clothes is not just helpful for the greater good. Even if you want to be selfish, shopping less is still the helpful, self-beneficial choice. So today, I want to talk about those benefits. How buying fewer clothes is not just good for the world, but it's also actually better for you personally right now. Because, of course, I want us all to try to be more conscious, slow consumers for the betterment of the world. And of course, I also want all of you to have more calm, positive, fulfilling relationships with your style and your closet. And incredibly conveniently, both of those outcomes can be gained from this same habit of buying fewer clothes. So let's get into it. The reasons to stop buying so many clothes that you maybe haven't heard before, but that might be the most directly beneficial to your daily life. The first negative I have noticed from bringing too many clothes into your wardrobe is that it really puts a strain on your inventory management. By that I mean every piece of clothing in your possession, and generally everything you own, is something you are responsible for. You have to find a place to store it, keep track of where it is, maintain its condition, clean it. If it's damaged or has some flaw, you're responsible for figuring out how to fix it or finding it a new home. You are in charge of that item. And clothing in particular requires a more involved degree of management because you have to use your clothes, keep track of them, clean them, reorganize them way more often than certain other household objects like a book or a blanket, for example. And all of this means for every new clothing item you take on, you have added one more somewhat high maintenance item to your inventory that you have to keep track of, which means you have increased your mental load. And the more you have and the faster you bring it in, the harder it is to organize and keep track of those items. I have personally found that when I have too many clothes in my closet, especially when I take on too many new things too quickly, once I pass a certain tipping point, I always find it stressful and overwhelming and end up regretting having that much stuff. By the way, I'm intentionally not giving a specific number or range for what's too much because I just think it depends so much on the person. Your climate, your job, your lifestyle, your sense of style and fashion. There just isn't a one-size-fits-all number. But overall, I would say looking out for the negative effects I'm describing in this video might actually be a good guide for what is too much for you personally. Sometimes we experience these negative effects and stressors without even realizing that they're coming from our wardrobe or how many things we have in it. But I think once you're tuned in and aware of these impacts that the size of your wardrobe or your shopping hauls can be having on you, you'll notice that these negative effects start occurring once you pass a certain point. And that might be how you know what's too much for you. Anyway, I really noticed the inventory management side of my wardrobe impacting me. Even just looking at too much stuff all at once in my closet is overwhelming to me. That's also why I've started moving certain seasonal stuff into storage, because if there's no chance I'm gonna wear something in the next 2 months, and I'm just gonna have to skip over it every day getting dressed, it just becomes visual clutter that stresses me out. And if it's not a seasonal issue, and you have an excess of tops that are all appropriate for the season you're currently in, that can still be negatively impactful in its own way, which is our next point: decision fatigue. This is sort of related to inventory management, but even if you're managing everything perfectly, it's all orderly and accounted for and maintained on a consistent schedule, if you have too many clothes, you will likely still experience decision fatigue, which is the mental exhaustion caused by making too many decisions. This can make us feel overwhelmed, anxious, or stressed, and creates mental overload, which can impede your continued decision making. This is a problem for two reasons. Firstly, having to make a ton of decisions is exhausting and stressful in itself. And the more clothing you have, the more decisions you're making. Choosing what to wear is not just one decision, it's also deciding what not to wear, which means every single item on view in your wardrobe becomes something you have to decide whether or not to wear. That alone can be hundreds of decisions just getting dressed. An exhausting and stressful start to the day. And then, of course, there is the effect of decision fatigue, which is that it cumulatively worsens your decision-making capability. And especially since getting dressed is often the first thing we do to start the day. If that process alone is overwhelming and fatiguing, you've set yourself up for a day of worse decisions, which might even include more excessive and unwise clothing purchases. It's a vicious cycle. But it's also not limited to clothing. It can impact all your other decisions in your work, personal life, hobbies, meals, time management, every other part of your day. Honestly, talking about this is actually kind of convincing me that I need to pare down my wardrobe options a bit more. At least what's accessible and visible to me on a daily basis. Because the amount of time I spend getting dressed can honestly be embarrassing. And it is probably taking up more of my decision-making power for the day than it needs to. If it's not incredibly obvious, this whole video is not only something I'm advising for you, but also something I need to remind and tell myself. I certainly haven't perfected all my consumer habits. And if anything, I might need to hear this whole video more as a fashion creator who probably buys and owns more clothing than most people. So I hope no one feels shamed noticing these negative effects in their own wardrobes or shopping habits, because I experienced them too. That's how I came up with them for this video. Alright, the third reason I think buying too many clothes is actually worse for you is that it stifles your creativity. When you're working with a smaller wardrobe, bringing in fewer pieces more slowly over time, it naturally leads you to be more creative with those items you already have and with each individual new item as you add it. Because to get novelty, you have to be creative since you're not just getting it through buying. Conversely, constantly shopping for new things and having a huge wardrobe naturally leads you to be less creative because you're relying on new items and the variety of that huge wardrobe for novelty. And then as you become used to finding novelty and variation through shopping and through the items themselves rather than the way you might use or style them, you get out of practice and out of the habit of finding novelty in other ways, like through creative styling, which means you'll get bored of those new items faster after just styling them a few ways. And when you get bored, you'll be more driven to shop again instead of getting creative with styling, because that's the mindset and habit and relationship you already have with your wardrobe. And when you do this, firstly, it contributes to the cycle of overconsuming, which causes the other negative outcomes we discussed, like inventory management issues and decision fatigue. And secondly, it also denies you the opportunity to have fun and be creative with your wardrobe, which I think can really add more joy and fulfillment to your relationship with your closet. I also think practicing creativity in your closet could potentially help you carry that creative mindset through to other tasks, although I couldn't find any studies to confirm or deny this. But in theory, I think using your closet as a place to rework, innovate, be resourceful, etc. could strengthen those skills overall in your brain, which could benefit you across so many other facets of life. I feel like there must be research about this, but I could not find any anywhere. So if anyone's got a link, we love an academic study on this channel. We love citing a source. Drop it in the comments, please. My academic article queens who are watching. Anyway, I think stifling this creativity with your closet can also have one more negative impact, which brings us to my fourth reason to stop buying so many clothes. It hinders your personal style. I think getting too many new clothes too often actually hinders your personal style because it gives you fewer opportunities to develop it. This might seem a little counterintuitive because obviously the pieces you choose to own and wear reflect your style. And of course, sometimes bringing something new into your wardrobe can be a way of developing and achieving the style you want. However, style is also created through repetition. What makes something someone's style rather than just an outfit or item they're wearing is whether it aligns with the distinct traits of their unique aesthetic sensibilities, which are established through repetition over time. You could compare a sense of style in fashion to the art style of a fine artist. Claude Monet is considered brilliant and recognizable, not because he was doing something in a totally new, different, aesthetically varied style in every painting. It's the complete opposite. We recognize his work because it has such a distinct look in color palette, subject matter, brush strokes. Brush strokes is kind of a tongue twister. so many distinct elements are iterated on and reused again and again to build his style. And that distinctness and the fact that repetition builds skill is what causes iconic artists like Monet to be considered so brilliant. Monet probably wouldn't have gotten nearly so good at painting haystacks or water if he had constantly been aiming for novelty and taking on something new to paint instead. Now, listen, I'm not saying you have to be the Claude Monet of fashion or even the Claude Monet of your own wardrobe. I'm certainly not. But I am saying reusing and reworking the same tools, the same themes, the same items in your wardrobe over and over again in new ways is how you're going to create your distinct style and get better at styling those pieces. Meanwhile, if you're always just giving up on things and seeking novelty after just a few styling ideas, you're going to continue to feel frustrated with your style and your outfits because you're not giving yourself the chance to rework things, establish patterns, create signatures, and improve your styling abilities with certain pieces. This is actually something I've also heard Daily Helen here on YouTube talk about. I'll link her channel below because it's full of great stuff, especially about like mindful consumption. But she often references how the first outfit you make with an item isn't likely to be the best outfit you'll make with that item, because the best outfits come from reworking and iteration and honing your skills and practicing creativity. And I think there's often this pressure to make the first outfit the best one, or to think the first outfit is the best it'll ever be, and then feel like you've used up all the good outfits for a piece after you've styled it like 3 times. But Helen's point resonated with me so much because I've also found it to be true in my own styling. Often, the outfits for a certain piece actually just get better the more different variations you try over time, especially if you're already in the habit of practicing creativity, and so you bring that creativity to that old piece every time you style it. All right, with that, we have covered my selfish reasons for trying to buy fewer clothes. Let's summarize our key takeaways so we don't forget. I think buying too many clothes is actually making your life worse by increasing your inventory management demands, increasing decision fatigue, decreasing creativity, and suppressing your personal style. Which means, of course, the good news is that buying less clothing and taking it in more slowly can actually make your life better by easing up on that inventory management and decision fatigue and helping to bolster your creativity and style development. I think even just knowing these, drawbacks and benefits, along with, of course, also the environmental, social, and financial drawbacks and benefits, can help us to shop more slowly and mindfully. But if you're interested in another video focusing more deeply on actionable ways to actually prevent yourself from over-consuming clothing, please let me know, because I have some tips and ideas in mind for that too. I would love to hear what you think of these reasons to avoid over shopping for clothing in the comments, if they ring true to you, if you've experienced these negative impacts or positive outcomes, or if you have any other reasons to stop owning and buying so much clothing to add, please do share. I look forward to hearing them. And I heard if you do leave a comment, watch another video, and subscribe, you will make only perfect decisions from here on out for the rest of your life. No decision fatigue, no bad decisions ever again. No guarantees, but that's what I heard might happen if you like, comment, keep watching, and subscribe.